I did a game jam. Yup. Hey friendos, it's DW, and I'm entering the Ludum Dare 46 game jam with my buddy D'Arcy, which starts tomorrow actually. So I'm recording this intro and a couple things beforehand. I'm going to document my progress of this very short game jam. The Winnipeg Game Collective is hosting a game jam, virtually of course, that revolves around Ludum Dare 46. They're going to have some content on Twitch and stuff like that. So D'Arcy and I are going to follow along with that stuff, and then we're going to try to tackle this game as team dads. Both D'Arcy and I have families and we have day jobs. I mean, the weekend won't count, but we have families and we have responsibilities around maintaining our family life and stuff like that. So ultimately, it's going to take a second share to that over the weekend. We're not going to be able to just crunch from from Friday night through until Sunday late night and go back to work Monday morning. But we want to see what we can produce. And so I wanted to record these videos, and I got a couple of assumptions I'm going to make about how we're going to go forward. D'Arcy's kind of given me the wheel on kind of picking the foundation. And so I wanted to share my thoughts before I even got started, and we'll see how that turns out by the end. So let's start talking about what I think we're going to do. So first thing is the engine selection. And I've decided I'm actually going to go with the Godot engine over Unity, over GDevelop, over Pixelbox, only because D'Arcy had a good point. It's the one I probably know the best at this point. I know Unity very well too, but I would like to see how far I can take Godot. I've really enjoyed working in it. I think it is a friendlier engine to get ourselves going really quickly. It has a lot of samples. It has a very concise way of working with things, so I think that's what we're going to go with. It also has the web export as long as we don't use C#, which is a bit of a bummer, but I mean, at least we can use it going. We can use it using GD script and Visual Script even. But we want to see how far we can take this thing, and I think it's going to go well with Godot. So that's the engine choice. Even though I did the stream about exploring other ones, that's probably the one I'd like to explore a little bit further. So we're going to use some Godot engine 3.2.1. So the next thing I want to bring to this in terms of prep is regarding the theme. So I don't know what the theme is yet. That's going to get announced tomorrow at the Game Jam, so D'Arcy and I will work through that. But I want to kind of give us a bit of some footing to get ourselves moving on it. And with regards to, I'm going to do some searching for some assets and sounds and different things like that I can kind of start putting together. So I'm going to try to do something around a modern setting, which kind of ties into the game that I'm going to find inspiration that I know D'Arcy has put on my radar, which is Wall Street Kid for the NES, cross the theme. So whatever that means. But I think that'll be a cool game because D'Arcy put that on my radar, and I really think that's a cool game that we could both kind of get behind. It's very simplistic, very, very easy to digest. Has a lot of little moving parts, so maybe we can pick one of those moving parts and make a little game over the weekend and enhance it as quickly as we can before the deadline. But yeah, I think that's going to be a cool way to kind of set ourselves up so we can kind of start working towards that end with, again, like Wall Street Kid cross the theme with a sort of modern take on that, hopefully. And so it's begun. The theme is Keep It Alive. So we're doing Wall Street Kid cross Keep It Alive. After some brainstorming as soon as it was announced, we kind of came back with this idea of buying and selling stuff to keep a desk plant alive, but that desk plant is a carnivorous desk plant who will eat your family if you don't actually feed it properly. It got dark real quick thanks to D'Arcy, but I really like that idea and it made me laugh, so I'm like, let's do this thing. It's gonna be simple but fun. And so that's the idea here. So we're going forward with that. Got a couple little sketches of what it's going to look like on my end because I'm focusing on art and code tonight. But let's get into the other stuff that went down tonight and how things progressed. So like good architects do, like D'Arcy and I are both solution architects. And we don't code a lot, but we do draw a lot of pictures. And D'Arcy drew us a lovely picture to actually wrap our brains around what we are going to build. And I say there's this buy-sell mechanic along with this plant feeding mechanic, and that's kind of the whole setup, and you got to survive so many days. So there's a lot of different variables there, so D'Arcy took some time tonight and broke the whole thing down. So the first thing is your new game. So this is where we start over here with the game setup. And pretty straightforward, you kind of reset your game state. And that makes perfect sense. The gameplay, which I'll put in green here, is this guy in the middle. But it's kind of, this is your, not your gameplay, rather it's your gameplay setup, your game state. So you're updating your game state here. So this is your starting over here on the game setup, but this is actually updating your current state. So you increment the day, is it the end of the month? Then that means the game's over, you beat it. Do you have family status? How's your family members? If they're all eaten, then it's game over. Update your car prices and then end beginner round. So that's like the initialization of the round in your gameplay state. And this, we'll put this one in, let's say pink for fun. Over on this side, these guys here are their actual gameplay where you're going to make the choices with the fancy UI. So this is what I was working on a lot tonight, was actually just getting that basic gameplay so a player can get in there and start tinkering with stuff. And it was really nice to kind of start to feel stuff out. I also did a little bit of art because I learned from the last one you did some art. But we'll get into that in a little bit. But this diagram actually fleshes out all of our requirements for the game. So we actually know what we're building, and we can actually hopefully tighten this up a little bit more to reduce our scope if we can. On the flip side of that, maybe we can increase our scope if we have extra time. So we can we got some ideas going both ways. So that's always really cool. So the second thing I did tonight was work on the actual gameplay itself. And that's really just essentially just showing you a fancy UI, and events are going to occur to you or happen to you over the course of your gameplay session, right? And so I wanted to get that kind of wired up. And you can see I'm using the default icon in Godot, nothing too crazy here. If I zoom in on the live icon, I'm just going to kind of get this right in the center. And you can see I can select different items. Do check plant, check computer. Those are the two choices I started off with. You can see in the top left corner, I got a days remaining. So as you finish your work day, you'll be able to, that number will go down and events will occur. D'Arcy's got all that mapped out, and I've got a little Visio or workflow diagram that kind of highlight all the different states, which is going to make it, that's critical to understanding how this gameplay loop is going to work. But we have all this stuff working, and we can kind of sub in our art as we see fit. And so that's kind of the plan so far. Nothing else to really show. Other than that, I can actually submit an action when I push the enter key or the space bar in this case. But yeah, it's definitely a work in progress. I feel like we have a really good grasp on the game itself. And so seeing this kind of working with some of the rust off the wheels for my GD script ability, because we want a web export. We did talk about that, and we decided to go with it. But yeah, I'm really happy with the progress we've got done tonight between D'Arcy's design work in terms of the game loop and stuff like that, along with the actual idea of this little weird game of keep it alive, cross Wall Street kid. That's pretty cool. It's working out. I think worked out really well with what we wanted to produce. And yeah, we'll see what tomorrow brings. So here's hoping. During the day today, while managing my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old, we sort of played around on our electric piano and managed to write a little song, a little melody that I think can work as background music for the game. It's a pretty short gameplay stint, but I'm really happy that I got to write that during the day, and I'd like to put it into this game prototype, but I don't know if I'm actually going to have time to do it. Between D'Arcy's working on some code too, but between sound effects, there's all these things to polish up, and I'm just not sure how I'm going to wrap all that together because I still have to get the guts of the game working. But we'll see how it goes. I'm a little bit worried about it right now, but we'll play it by ear and see how it goes. Another thing I got accomplished tonight was some art. So we already saw the computer the other day, and if you saw it on Twitter, that's good. But there's a couple other things that I've drawn. I haven't put them in the game yet. That'll be tomorrow. I drew a beautiful room. This is definitely not the best room I've ever seen in my entire life, but it does have the placeholders for the things I need it to do. There's the door actually that you're going to be selecting as the way to end your turn. And of course, our plant. This is my beautiful plant that I drew in the pot, and we're going to put that on the desk along with your computer. So you should be able to kind of navigate through these items, and we'll see how that kind of works. But yeah, so I got some art done, which is something I've always wanted to do. It's crap, but it's developer art, but I'm happy enough with what we've got here. And yeah, so that's a really good thing too that I managed to accomplish tonight. And I have a whole other day tomorrow, but got to take care of the kids, hence why I'm going to bed early, and hopefully I get some time tomorrow night to work on it. So, yep, that's the plan. Alright, a quick demo for what I managed to get accomplished tonight on the Ludum Dare 46. So, nothing much has changed here. I'm still working with temp stuff. I added an exit end the round sort of image here. So as you exit, you can see here if I zoom in on the stats up in the corner here, the plant hunger and the days remaining now go down. Very straightforward, but one of those kind of bigger deals for me. And you can actually feed the plant now too. So thanks to D'Arcy's code, I got a little bit of a UI thing popping up there. It doesn't actually work as I want it to. I was hoping it would, but just kind of be some quick code that I can steal from D'Arcy, but didn't pan out that way. But at least right now I have the feeding logic working, and now I can actually start writing some rules around this. So that's really good. So the things coming along, and on top of that, if you didn't notice, like I said, D'Arcy's working on the buy and sell mechanic, which will that will pop up when you check the computer, which you can do it today. The next thing I need to do is, other than the feeding mechanic, I need to add the health bar meter and some of the logic for what happens when your plant gets too hungry, which eats a family member, and kind of represent that somehow. But yeah, it's coming along slowly but surely here. It's the end of night 3, and this is Little Shop of Wall Street, our Ludum Dare 46 submission. This is officially submitted. The links are in the description below, and I'm going to walk you through a demonstration of the game. It's not fully as fully fleshed out as we would have liked it to have been, but you know what? It's been such an amazing learning experience and positive experience just doing this over the weekend in my V time that I have zero complaints. I really, other than the fact I wish we could have had more time to flesh it out for the deadline. And that being said, let me walk you through the game. So the game is controlled with the arrow keys and the space bar. And the idea here is to kind of go through and select these different options. Kind of a fancy menu. The whole purpose of the game is to feed this plant. And you need to buy it some fancy plant food. You can see it has a tongue. It's probably a carnivorous plant. It's a malicious plant. It's going to eat you if you don't feed it. And if you don't, and the way that you're going to do that is by going over to this computer and trading stocks. That was the original concept. Unfortunately, if I select this computer, you can see the computer is broken, but maybe it'll work in a future version of the game. And I'll talk about that after the demo. So, although we do have a lot of that logic working outside of the game, in code, we didn't quite get it implemented in time in the game. We just ran out of time. We don't have time tomorrow. I know the submission is 8 p.m. tomorrow night. We just don't have the time with day jobs and family commitments and stuff like that to actually work more on this. But more on that later. So what you do is eventually this whole game to get this, to wrap this thing up, I just kind of set the feed plant logic, and you say, oh, it just kind of picks one of the types of food you were going to be able to buy. So in this case, you bought some plant food, and you give some to the plant, and then you cannot feed it a second time in a day, and then you leave for the day. You can see here my stats go end. So I end my day, and my plant hunger changes. So you want to kind of keep this going. Family members remaining is your basically your lives, and then you just keep kind of feeding different food to it based on what the RNG you get. You'll either kind of survive or whatever, but there's not a lot of gameplay to it. The buy sell mechanic was actually what we should have started with early on, and we did have this idea early on, and we could have done that probably. But I grossly underestimated how much effort it was going to take to put all these things together, because my goal was really to get some custom assets in there, not just text on a screen. And all this art, although as hideous as I think it looks, it's almost so proud of it, is all original art by me. I actually even wrote a song that I didn't get to put in here for some background music, and I was going to work on some sound effects. But again, the goal was to get something pushed out the door, and tonight was that last night, and to get all the pieces together to kind of tie it up nicely, make it playable, submit it with a description, some cover art, and some stuff like that from the lessons I learned from the GitHub Game Jam. It took most of my evening to get this done, and so that's where I'm going to leave it here. And like I said, demonstrate. You can play this game yourself at the link below on my itch.io page, and also feel free to check out and leave some comments on the Ludum Dare submissions for both the Winnipeg local hosting one along with the global one. So that's the demo. All right, so some initial thoughts now that the game jam is complete. So, did I produce the product that I wanted to? You know what? Yes and no. So no in the sense of, did it have all the features that I wanted? Did it have that broker system that I really wanted people to tinker with and start tinkering with myself? No. Did I successfully put something more custom together with a teammate, with new developer art, with some new creative aspects put into it, and get it out the door before the deadline? Absolutely. And that's a huge success, especially because there's a lot of little unseen threads that you're not going to see in the game. So things like the song that I wrote, things of some of the sound effects I was kind of messing around with, the broker system itself, and how we were going to reuse those components. What I've realized in this is that although it's a prototype and everything like that, the key thing here is figuring out how to collaborate with these tools. And there's so many more tools that you're dealing with in such a condensed amount of time. Unless you have a team that's familiar with all of them and they're very, well versed in them and know how to merge code and how to use source control with art assets and sound and blah, 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 blah. All of these pieces combined together make a game. And when you add a second person into this, like D'Arcy's new at this too, just like me. But the fact of the matter is, like, we were hitting snags of like source control management. I'd never worked with another person, and I'm pretty good with source control, especially with Git. And I hit a bunch of weird snags I did not expect with the engine. I had to spend time working on that. Getting the art getting it into the game was really easy, but I had to force myself to draw some stuff. And all these tutorials I've been watching online for the last while did help me a lot. But again, it was that, overall, like, wow, there was so much stuff to do. What do I take on? And prioritization and organization is critical, and when it's done in your B time, or with the time that you've got over a weekend, it's definitely much harder. And with that, I'm actually going to just end this here. I mean, I usually record an extra conclusion or something like that after the fact, but I'm actually going to say this is the end of the video. And I want to follow up on a few things, and there's so many things spinning around in my head, but I think the point of what I wanted to do here was document this whole arc that I went through with D'Arcy and this project, and I think I've done that for the most part. And I will follow up on this again. I don't know when or how, but I will, because this game, there's some loose threads here. There's some things that are so close to being implemented, and they're fresh in my mind, and I'd love to get them out the door. So bug me about that if you don't see anything from me in the next month. But I'm hoping over the next 2 weeks, this is going to be my primary game project, that if I can keep my focus on it. But until the next time I see you, thank you so much for watching, and have yourself a pleasant day and or evening, and take care.